Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever LongStache deck casual. That's LongStache, who is the incredible Ritchie, Longman Tarot, and me, TarotStache.
Hi.
Hello. Ritchie, thank you for being here and connecting us with these two amazing people below us.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Oh my God. I'm very excited. So we have Kenn. So pronounce your channel name completely for me.
So it's the Sanctuary of Hekate Polymorphos.
Okay. And that is Kenn Payne, who is the author of this amazing oracle deck. And we also have Chris Butler, who is Sacred Tarot, who is the artist of this amazing deck. So thank you both for joining us.
It's a pleasure, darling.
Well, thank you. Backstage, I did warn Kenn and Chris that I am going to be heaping praise in their general direction throughout the majority of this live. I will try to pull it back. It won't work.
Just feel free to heap praise. Just heap cash and checks as well. You know, we like that.
Yes, but you're not cheap. You may be easy, but you're not cheap.
How do you know I'm easy?
I have been in enough bathrooms to recognize the name. It's nice of you to put it in your handwriting, though.
Thank you, darling. I knew I was taking my life in my own hands coming on here.
There you go. Well, at least you're taking something in your own hands.
I know. Actually, can I just apologize in advance if I look as if I'm fidgeting? I've got a confession to make. I didn't get my cards back in order before we went live. So,
isn't that interesting? Because Kenn, Ritchie, and I did.
I will hold my hands up and say that I didn't, because I never do. My decks are always in use, so I'm not as OCD as Chris is for putting them all back every time I've used them.
I am. Yeah, I've got to admit, one of my mates actually accused me of being CDO, and when I asked him, he said, "Yeah, that's OCD with the letters in alphabetical order." And I thought, I'll kind of take that as a compliment. But
do you feel called out, Ritchie? Because I think they're talking about us. Because and here you go. I have all of my notes.
Look at this.
This isn't my first time at the rodeo, but that's okay. So everyone, please remember, this is for entertainment purposes only. Do not make decisions based upon what we say. Seek professional assistance. Really. We are going to be talking about an oracle deck, so please purchase responsibly. Know your limits. We are here to share, not to sell. The links to where you can purchase responsibly and know your limits are below, as are Chris and Kenn's YouTube channels, which y'all are having a good time talking about these cards, aren't you? Yes. It's quite lovely. Everyone, please do the things where you like, share, and subscribe this video, because there are people who need this deck, but we're here to share, not to sell. Okay. So we are not reading with them today. That will come at a later time, perhaps. So but I was going to ask Ritchie, nice mug there.
Thank you. It's my LongStache mug.
LongStache.
It only gets used when we collaborate.
Yes.
I want one. You need to start the line of merch, love.
I've heard that.
Definitely need one. Can I just say hello to everyone in chat while I think on, because I've kind of just gone into chat and it's like, it's lovely to see everyone here. So I'm just going to say quick. So Tucky Heroin, Philippa Shawcross, Free Spirit, Amanda Carroll, Colbert Cards, Dalloway Girl, Madame Mara's House of Cards, Carter Mancy Mesquite, Willow Love. If I'm missing one, just hi to everyone anyway, because it's just lovely to see you, and it's lovely to be sharing this with you. So yeah, hopefully we haven't driven you insane by the time we've finished.
Insanity might be part of what happens when you work closely, or an altered state, we'll say. So
I mean, I gave Ken a certificate, didn't I? Love, when we'd finished working, to certify that you'd kind of gone over the edge.
Oh, you know? Well, I mean, I was halfway over before I even approached you. So, I mean,
yeah, you can't. I'm just quite amazed you survived. You know, we had a lovely time though, didn't we? Because we kind of did some of this remotely, because Ken and I mean, for people who don't know the UK, I live in the Northwest, Ken lives in the Midlands, so we're sort of an hour and a half away on the train, something like that.
Yeah.
So we're not local, but we're not we're not sort of really distant, but we kind of did some collaborative work over cam like this, but then a lot of it you did, was it 3 or 4 visits up to mine where we kind of did?
It was only 2.
Was it only 2?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, I didn't realize. I thought it was more than that, because we kind of did. We did like sort of intensive weeks where we just worked together intensively.
Sure.
And we just had a really good laugh, didn't we? Yeah, well, I think we did. Hopefully you did as well. But we kind of, I love working together, because it just, in the same room together, because it just seemed to accelerate, didn't it? We got so much more done,
Yeah,
of course.
Definitely.
Of course. Jackie Jacaranda is here, as is Jane the Seeker. And we have Chris from Elemental Cartomancy.
Oh, hi, Chris.
He calls us, he said, handsome bastards. Bastards.
Darling, flattery will get you everywhere. It's lovely to see
you. Here you go. This is for you, Ken. Hi, I do a daily poll since I got the deck. Though the booklet doesn't have much, it's very helpful. Will there be a book following it?
So yeah, in order to obviously meet the specs for publication, my original more in-depth book idea kind of had to be altered and sort of reduced. So I am in the process of writing the book that I want to, that should be alongside it, not just for the divination purposes, but also for the educational side of like learning what all of the epithets and things actually mean, and what where they originate from. And so yeah, it's in the works. It'll be hopefully sometime this year.
Brilliant.
Beautiful. So there you go. You heard it here. And Shelley Davis says, greetings from Canada. I just received the Oracle of the Hekatean Path. What a fabulous magical deck made with love and energy. Thank you for this labor of love. See? And Free Spirit also was like, thank you, Ken and Chris, for this amazing deck. Okay, now Ken and I I was asking Ken backstage, how do you pronounce this goddess's name?
Yeah, so I mean, I say Hekate, or generally sort of something that's similar intonation. Obviously, the ancient Greek version, there was no hard H, and so it was more like a Hekate sort of sound. But then obviously you have people that say Hecate, you have people that say, I mean, you still have people that say, like how Shakespeare said, Hecate, and I suppose there's no right or wrong way if it works for you, but I say Hekate.
So then how do you pronounce the name of the deck?
So Oracle of the so this is where it gets different, because I would say Oracle of the Hekatean Path.
Okay. Yeah. So that aside, everybody, this is one of those things that it doesn't matter how you pronounce it, just use it.
Yeah.
I mean, because, okay, I'll get off of my soapbox. We have Free Spirit is like, thank you for a book. Linda De Gonzalez is here, Jonathan Daly. So all of the best chatters are here. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
All of the best chatters. And yes, I've already put the request out to Ken to consider joining me for a laugh and learn about this particular goddess. So he's considering it. I'm sure I will have to send him flowers of some kind, maybe some candy, some keys, begging notes or something like that.
Yeah.
These are all things that work for you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A bottle of wine never goes amiss either.
Non-sequential bills, nothing higher than a 50. That works. Anyhow. So I'm going to take a sip. Ritchie, would you like to say anything? Because you can tell I'm fanboying, can't you?
No, it's a pleasure to be here. I've been looking at the deck since I've had it for a couple of over a week now. And I'm also going to say how much I've enjoyed your videos that are over on Chris's channel, where you've been in depth talking about the card, how they came about, and the meanings behind them all. And I would really recommend people who want a bit more insight, perhaps, than just the book, to go over and look at this. How many episodes have you made?
I think it's 12, isn't it?
12 in total, isn't there? But I think we're only about 7 or 8 in.
We're up to, I think it's 7 or 8. Episode 7 or episode 8, I can't remember which one is, because they're basically going live every Friday afternoon UK time. So, but they generally, if you keep an eye out on a Friday, that's when the next installment will appear. So,
and they're a joy to watch, and
they are
very entertaining.
Well, and I would just say, if everybody just likes and subscribes to their channel, they'll be notified when they go live.
Absolutely, because basically, if you subscribe, at some stage when I go live, your inbox will go ping, and then you'll know what we're there. So,
well, okay. So there's a couple of things in chat. Care Bear, Bard of Cards, Karen said, "Are there 2 alternate spellings for Hekate or Hekate, or am I making that up in my head?"
Okay, so Hecate with a K is more the Greek transliteration, whereas with the C, it's the Latin transliteration from sort of Roman times. But both are valid, both are the same, both have the same meaning.
Yes, that's a great question, and I appreciate that. Chris, Elemental Cartomancy, says, "I need to send you a fan to Thwarp." I could make that happen. So there you go.
We should have one made with our cards on.
Hey, that would be fabulous. I wonder if Redbubble do fans.
Yes, why not?
Oh, actually, do you know what,
boys?
Because we were talking about merch, weren't we, at some stage?
Yes.
But could you imagine a fan with like sort of repeating Wolfsbane?
Or the wheel, or her wheel.
Oh yeah.
So, okay. So,
I'm kind of just suffering with pixie fan envy at the moment. I have to say that is rather gorgeous.
Well, thank you.
Why am I not surprised?
So here we have Hekate's Faithful. Hi, crazy guy who spent 52 pounds on the Oracle deck from America. Here, thank you.
I've spoken with this gentleman. Obviously, when the deck went live, there were some problems with people that had pre-ordered via Amazon UK. That they got sort of indefinite delay on getting them, but obviously some people were still chomping at the bit to get them, and this gentleman found somebody selling a copy on Etsy from America, even though he lives in England.
Oh,
And so he
wow.
paid
Oh,
about £25 extra to get it shipped to the UK. But you know,
no, that's
power to
devotion.
him if you feel that. You know,
Yeah,
that
we
is
applaud you.
That is
beyond. You know, that's beyond everything.
wow.
Jamie's
And you
not
know
here,
what?
so I can give that a tiny hands a round of applause. So
You know, when as an artist, when you hear that somebody went to all that trouble just to obtain your work, you just think
Yeah.
that's big.
yes.
You know, that's lovely. So thank you.
And there are more people coming in, and I appreciate all of you for being here and finding out about this amazing deck. What I'd love to hear from the two of you, and I know it's like, thank you, you're welcome.
I wish you hadn't had to pay that much, but it's just heartwarming that anyway, you kind of know where I'm coming from, you know.
Well, I am the person who I consider this. Oh, here, wait a minute. You're going to see this multiple times. This is a tool that I will be using. I'm also a person who I don't bargain with my tools. So if it's expensive, I do that if that's I can do it responsibly.
I love it when this particular prop comes out because I feel the blood draining out in my face immediately.
So both of these creators have put together a list of great videos about this deck. And who wants to start with this? I'd love for you to briefly share how this collaboration came into being. Should we start with Kenn or Chris?
Start with Kenn because
Start with me.
you've because it kind of the deck sort of predated my involvement, didn't it?
Yeah. So for obviously I've sort of worked and followed Hecate for since about sort of 2007, 2008. And obviously during that time, she would crop up in tarot decks or oracle decks, as a singular card. I mean, even when I've thought about it in hindsight, actually my first encounter with her was the moon card in the Mythic Tarot. My mum had a copy when I was a child, and I was always trying to steal it, even though I didn't know what it was. And she used to tell me off, and then eventually, in my teens, she actually gave it to me, and I do still have it. And so I just always thought, well, why? The more I learned about her, and the more in depth of her, she's more than just a goddess of the crossroads, or a goddess of the moon, or the goddess of the witchcraft, or all of these things that these cards sort of summed her up as. And I was just kind of always in a little bit of disbelief as to why it had never been, the market had never been cornered. And so I just thought, okay, well, I will just make a sort of a system of divination for my own devotional use. And I kind of toyed around with just making it very simply, either just little basic symbols on little discs of wood, or on, dices, that you could throw and just, do that. And then over time, with me utilizing that, I kind of expanded on that idea a little bit. And I actually have it here because I did think it might come up. I created my own version of the very basic, my camera hand's not
Beautiful.
great. And literally these are just, they are literally just print out pictures on very, very glossy photo paper with a very basic background. And I think there's about 30. Some of them are just, but they are just like very rudimentary. So I mean, there's the crossroads, and then obviously things like Hecate's wheel and things like that. And so I used this for years and years and years, just in my devotions, and just to get sort of insight into my relationship with honoring Hecate. And then it was I'm just trying to think what year it actually was. It was about a year before the pandemic, sort of.
It was early 2019.
Yeah, and I just at the time I had a friend that owns the local sort of metaphysical shop, and they'd got a new load of tarot decks in, and there was just this one that was sat on the shelf, and I kept going over and picking it up and looking at it and putting it back and coming away from it, and then going back and picking it up and looking at it and just putting it down again. And it was the Healing Light tarot. And I don't know what it was, but I think I must have done that for about 2.5 weeks. And then one day I just thought, oh, do you know what? I'm just going to buy it. I'm going to see what it is that's, I don't know, pulling me towards it. And as I bought it and I flicked through it and I was like, oh yeah, this is a really interesting style. And then I started to use it, and I found that I was just really connecting with it as a tarot deck. I was, when I was reading for other people, they were not only captivated by the unique art style, but they were also a little bit sort of blown away by how pertinent the readings were coming from it. And it just so happened that I think I'd been using it for a few months, and then I was working on another as yet to be finished book project, and I kind of came up with the idea of, well, what if I go back to my original idea of the handmade divination tool, and I started trying to sort of write it as like an appendix with instructions on how somebody could make it themselves. And it was while I was doing that I just had this, it's the goddess in your ear kind of thing. And it was just, that ask him. And I was like, okay. So it was weird because I as much as I have or know English people who are authors and creators, for some strange reason, I assumed that Chris must be in America somewhere, a successful tarot creator, blah, blah, blah. And then it just transpired that not only did we have a friend in common, he lived not that far away in Liverpool. His parents lived in the same area where I went to school, and all these other little things. So I just happened to email him and just say, would you be interested in doing a collaboration? And he emailed me back and said, well, let's try and sync up for a telephone call. And obviously we did like a vid call, and he put all of the questions to me, and I was just like, yeah, okay, yeah, I've got all that. I'll just, I'll ping that over once we get off the phone. And I suppose from the rest after that was it was history, like they say, isn't it?
It really was. And I kind of fell through the floor when we had that conversation, because it was, I kind of admitted to Ken afterwards. By that stage, I'd embarked on 3 collaborative deck projects, only one of which had succeeded, which actually was quite a difficult process for both of us, which made us doubly proud of what we achieved. But I'd had 2 failed collaborations. And I think the early collaborations I'd gone into, I was sort of inexperienced in terms of collaborative work, and I learned through my mistakes what I actually needed from a writer and what they needed from me. But it's a thing that I get asked quite often. I get people coming to me and saying, look, I've had this really brilliant idea for a deck, and I'm looking for an artist. Would you be interested? And it's really difficult because I hear those words and the blood drains out of my face. And it's mainly because of bad experiences in the past, but also because there's, no disrespect to any of these guys. In every case, they've come up with amazing concepts, but they don't actually realize what I as an artist or any artist would need from them to actually then get the deck real. Because in a lot of cases, they've got the idea and the concept, but they haven't really thought through about what is going to go on the cards, So by the time Ken contacted me, as he says, it was kind of really odd, because it turns out we had a mutual friend. We had both lived in the same town, albeit at different periods. We had teachers in common, albeit even though we'd gone to different schools. I mean, it was kind of a weird string of coincidences, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
But then I've got this guy on the other end of the video call saying, I've got this really wonderful idea for a deck and I'm looking for an artist. And I'm thinking, oh God, not again. The last one was a disaster.
Hang on a second, I don't sound like that, do I?
No, you don't. That's right. You don't. So I then start reeling off the script, which I've kind of built up to kind of filter out. So I said to him, right, I need a full list of cards. I need a full script, you know, including all of the images and symbols that you want on every card. I kind of want the microwave. I want the cuddly toy. I want the fondue set, you know, I want the, you know, the jackpot holiday in, you know, I mean, I was beginning to feel sorry for him because I'm thinking, God. And at that stage I finished and there's just something kicked in thinking, right, probably won't hear from them again now. And then there was a pause of about 2 seconds and it was like, oh, that's fine. I'll email it all over when we finish the call. So, you know, at that stage I'm thinking, okay.
I love that.
And of course, you did, didn't you? I mean, literally coming off the call, and within 5 minutes, Kennedy emailed me basically a summary of everything that he devised so far. And at that stage, I realized, one, this was a really fully formed idea. But also, I'd never gone into goddess territory before. I mean, you're looking at somebody who now is a sort of, you know, agnostic, you know, an agnostic Christian with pagan overtones. You know, I basically was involved with the happy clappies in my teens and 20s, and then, you know, broke away, did a theology degree, got deprogrammed, you know, got deconstructed. So my faith background is very different. But the more I read through what Ken had sent me, it was fascinating. And I just thought, I really want to do this. I think because I'd said I'd let you know in a couple of days, didn't I, or something like that. And then I kind of did the fangirl thing and then just phoned him back straight away. And it's like, you know, I'll have your babies if you'll let me illustrate this deck, literally. And it was funny because we were chatting, weren't we? And I think was it 2 days later we'd completed the first card?
Wow.
Yeah, pretty much. And to be honest, apart from like a couple of tweaks, you kind of hit the nail on the head based on what I had seen in, because the thing was I was seeing the ideas that I was having in his style, and so for me to just explain it, then him to just do it and show me, and I was like, yep, that's it, next.
It was such a lovely feeling because at that stage I thought, yeah, we're going to work really well together. And what was so lovely was that the 2 previous collaborations that had gone wrong were both people that I knew beforehand. And for that reason, I thought, yeah, we can do this. You know, one, we got halfway and then the ideas ran out. The other one, basically, we shouldn't have agreed to collaborate with each other because we weren't on the same wavelength. And actually the planning hadn't gone in. And, you know, we just, you know, so I'd kind of, you know, in pointing fingers out at other people, I'm also pointing 3 back at myself. Of course. Because I've had to go on that learning process of, you know, what this takes to work jointly with someone. And it was just such a joy because I think as well, I mean, as I know now, there was already a pre-existent deck. There was kind of a prototype, wasn't there? So, you know, you'd been working with the prototype for a long time before we even started working together. But something did just click, and it was as if, I don't know, for some reason, we kind of just got each other. And also, as I say, very easy for me as an artist, because every time we'd start a new card, I had this really detailed brief, you know, because I knew that Ken had really considered hard what he wanted on each card, itemized it all, and then we could then go with Ken's script and then start discussing how we were going to translate that into visual terms, how it would work, you know, in my kind of style, you know, what was going to be practically possible, what wouldn't work, what we'd have to improvise. And we didn't have a single argument, which actually says it all.
Yeah,
you know,
that's incredible.
60-card collaboration, and that I don't remember there really being any tension. I mean, we had a couple of times where we just, oh God, let's just get off this bloody computer and
Yeah.
going out. Because I think
there was plenty of coffee, cake, and wine in between times.
yeah.
And that seemed to grease the wheels of creativity.
Creativity, yeah.
So
there was always a bottle of wine, kind of. That was the motivation for the end of the day, wasn't it? So,
yeah, because Plucky Heroin has said so. The Elton John and Bernie Taupin of tarot, then
they kind of got on all right, didn't they?
yes,
So I
they
suppose
did.
in that way, yeah.
Yes, and we have a fangirl moment. Ramon, OMG, is that the Chris Butler from the Healing Light Tarot and Healing Light Lenormand, two of my ever favorite decks? Total fan.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yes, it is.
I'm really pleased the decks have given you that much. That's just so lovely to hear. So yeah, it's me.
Yes. And more people have come in and have joined us. Hello, Amanda. I hope everything is well.
Hi, everyone.
And okay. Michelle Marie is like going flip through. Can't wait to hear your insights and read the comments. They are doing on the website on is it just streaming on yours, Chris, or is it also on yours, Ken?
It's just on mine because if you do, this is what I haven't managed to fathom out. If you do stuff live on YouTube, you can stream it through several channels, can't you?
Yes.
If you upload the same video on 2 channels, somebody then gets a strike from YouTube for a potential copyright or duplication violation. So in the end, we kind of we just we called it quits, and they're on my channel, but with links to Ken's.
Yeah. There, people in the chat are putting those down, and Amanda is in the hospital, so giving birth. So
wow.
So yes, and here we are talking about. Okay, so let's move on to Ritchie. Anything you want to say before we move to the physicality of the deck? I realize I've been talking, and
no, I'm just enjoying this, but I'm just gonna say what I love about this Oracle deck is, if I'm honest, I don't know very much about Hekate, and I have been learning a lot whilst working with this deck. I was a little bit timid, to say the least, to be working. But one of the things that I have loved, and you talked about the Mythic Tarot earlier, Ken, is how well this Oracle deck goes with any tarot deck that I've got with a Greek theme. So much so that I even picked up, I think this is a new deck, the Mythos Tarot. From the what is it, Rockpool? Yeah. And I know the art style is a million miles away from your wonderful Oracle deck, but the Magician cards there, again, very glossy.
Yeah.
And I'm always very used to this kind of image of Hekate, kind of quite, if you see thumbnails on YouTube, videos about, it's all very much that style, but it still works beautifully with the Oracle. So your Oracle deck just works with the Mythic Tarot, this one, the Mythos Tarot. I've got the Circe Tarot I've also picked up as well recently, and it works. So if you're a person that likes to mix and match your tarot and your Oracle, this will really, really add to the reading.
The Mythic is also one of my favorites. It was, and I've been using the Mythic a lot recently because it kind of working on this, because I knew nothing of Hekate before I started working with Kenn. This was total virgin territory for me, but it also rekindled my love of the Mythic Tarot.
Yes.
And like you, Rich, I use the two together, you know.
Yeah.
It's like I love that deck. Yeah.
I love that. So okay, so yeah, Heather is loving the conversation. So here's where I go into my overachiever mode. Bear with me. It is a 2-part box. So it's good. I will say it does have a ribbon, which I have described as a wimpy ribbon. So, but that's okay. That's just me.
It's wimpy but durable.
It's wimpy but durable and easy to use out. So that's good. Yeah. And I will be doing a flip through of this on my channel as well. But it is it has a little white book, which this deck will soon be augmented by an upcoming deck or an upcoming book, probably in 2 or 3 volumes, Ken, right? I mean, 3
Well, I think
volumes.
I could probably get it down into the 1 volume, but it will be a considerable book.
But three would be actually really good for Hekate.
Well, yeah, true that a lot of the triplicity sort of side of things does come in to it. I'm always just a case of when people want more, I'm just like, yeah, go on, then you can have it. I'm not very good at delaying gratification.
Nor am I.
Oh, you'll fit in round here perfectly, love, believe me.
Yes. What is this thing called delaying gratification? Because we'll put it this way: when Chris told me that this was coming out, I squeed, and then when he mentioned it was coming on pre-order, I pre-ordered it, and then I waited patiently, and fortunately, they kept moving the time up for release in the States. So, Little White Book. It's in English, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, and Russian, and there are about 40 pages in each. It has a lovely dedication.
Oh, can I just mention, Gerald?
Yep.
Several people have asked me about the portrait in there because it's not named underneath, but the portrait, that's actually a portrait that I drew of a dear friend of mine who unfortunately died of cancer in 2019. So he is mentioned in the dedication. That's a lovely friend of mine who was called Andy Sage. As I said, I thought I'll mention that now because several people have asked me who is the portrait. Because Ken and I made multiple dedications. I mean, my dedication on my part was to the memory of my dad, who I lost last year, and obviously with dedication to my mum, who's still with me, but also dedicated to Andy's memory. He was so Andy was terminally ill while Ken and I were working on this, and he had been a great supporter of my work, and actually he just gave me huge amounts of encouragement. And while he was going through his treatment, and also when he knew it was terminal, he was asking me to send him images. And I promised him, even though he wouldn't see it, I promised him that this would be dedicated to him on my part.
That's
so
beautiful.
Thankfully, his husband was thrilled with the dedication, which is
beautiful. Is this your original work, Ken?
Yes.
Okay. It's very cool, everybody. And here, let me cover it with the tiny hands so you can't see it. But you have to purchase responsibly. So, but it does come with 2 spreads.
Yes.
So a crossroad spread and a twin torches spread, which is extremely powerful. And as I say those 2 words, I get full body tingles, which tells me that something is good. So it is not edged.
No.
The card size is, because yes, I will measure it, is 3.5 inches by 5 inches. And if you need a comparison, everybody, there you go.
There we go.
So, and this is the RWS. I can't remember which one.
That's the original rider weight.
Thank you. It's the original rider weight. Can you tell I'm not an RWS fan? Come for me, YouTube. Come for me. Here's the back. So, it is borderless. It can be shuffled very easily. And one of the things that I want to point out is the makeup of the card is, we have at the top here, it is numbered, and thank goodness the book is in order by the numbers. I think do you call them the epithets, the ancient name, and the cult titles at the top? Is that what that is? Okay.
Yeah.
And then at the bottom we have a keyword. So, and it is borderless. So, Ritchie,
Yes.
would you like to share one of your favorite cards?
Well, the first one, I'm actually going to go straight for number 1 because this fills me with so much joy for so many reasons. Firstly, I love the statue. It's one of those images that follows me around, as in it keeps popping up on social media, even if it sounds perhaps silly. My friend once sent me a video. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Of it's an animation of the statue.
Yes,
saying, "You've got to believe in me."
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
So it brings me great joy, and I just love so many layers to this card. Primordial origins, and it has Chris Butler's seal on it by having those wonderful nebula clouds, which is one of the things I think of as your artwork when it comes to it.
There's something. Go on.
Thing that I just love very much about this deck. It's got a lot of symmetry in it, and I just like the balance that happens in so many of the images there because of the way you've mirrored the artwork in there. I love the stars. Everything about this, the colors is just right. And for the first card, which is Origins, it just speaks a lot to me on a lot of levels.
Yes.
Rich, it's interesting you mentioning the nebulae, because one of the reasons I love Kenn's concept for this was it kind of allowed me to pay homage to my first collaborative project, which was the Quantum Tarot, because I did that with Kay Stopforth, and she had the idea of using the Hubble telescope image of the pillars of creation as the towers on the moon card. And when Kenn discussed this with me, because I think had you seen the Quantum Tarot at that stage, love? I can't remember.
Yeah, because you'd given me a copy.
Of course I had. I'd sent you a copy. That's right.
Just keep giving it to people, whether you
That's right.
or not.
I loved when Kenn suggested this image. I mean, it made perfect sense for the concept of this card, but it was kind of also lovely to be able to, from an artist's point of view, to sort of tip the hat to that was my first published deck.
Sure.
And it's also one of my favorite images that the Hubble Space Telescope ever produced. And it fascinates me, but also as well, I love what Kenn was touching at on this card, the fact that, with a lot of goddesses, their origins are kind of traceable within history as we know it. Whereas Hecate's origin, I know you kind of really made me sort of appreciate this. Hecate's origins actually go way beyond recorded history, don't they? She's kind of just always there.
And it was one of those things that the initial idea to sort of explore this origin side to Hecate was, I wasn't sure initially where I was going to go with it, and obviously the image of the statue that I've used is it's the Bernie relief. Some people it's interpreted either as Ishtar or Inanna. Some people say it's Lilith. It wasn't that I was trying to say that Hecate was these goddesses, but there was just something about the sort of humanoid animal hybrid, kind of neither one thing nor the other, sort of way that it was standing there, just very regal and commanding. And then when we started to toy with the idea of the pillars of creation and this sort of primordial water pool, and we started to touch on those kind of really big celestial type energies, it just was like, this is what I'm trying to sort of get at. It's not that I'm trying to say Hecate is all these other goddesses. It's that her true origins disappear off into the literally into the origins of time, and it was just I suppose it's, in some respects, it's one of those literally more nebulous concepts, but trying to give it some substance at the same time.
I think it was working on this card made me realize actually just what a journey of discovery this deck would be for me. Because I think what started to strike me was, the more you'd unfolded in terms of, your concepts for the cards, I realized she's just not like other run-of-the-mill goddesses, because she has so many aspects, has roots going back into so many different histories and traditions. She's a Greek goddess, but in other ways she's not. She's so much more, and so much more ancient. And that really, once we've done this image, I thought, now I'm getting curious.
Nice. Nice.
Did you design the cards in order?
No, we kind of you kind of just went with what you felt. You kind of just let your intuition guide you, didn't you? And it was a lovely way to work. You know, because Kenn would just, you know, we'd be working together, and Kenn would say, well, you know, we're going to try this one today. I feel this is, and I could kind of understand it, because I think it was very much when the concept was kind of ready. You were ready to give birth to the concept of each card, wasn't it? Even though we had the skeleton of each card down on paper, you know, it just felt like a really natural and organic process.
Well, I mean, for me, like I still never see it so much as me giving birth to it in a roundabout way. You know, there's that old phrase, that old saying of, you know, oh, Jesus take the wheel. With me, it's Hecate takes the wheel. You know, and then when I think this is probably why I sometimes find it hard to think of this as something that I've created, because there is a lot of the devotional side to it, and the divine inspiration. So it's almost like I was kind of an instrument in helping it come apart, and then it's like I don't see it as actually having come directly from me. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think that it was definitely one of those things where the goddess was, you know, over my shoulder going, yeah, that needs to be darker, or we need that color, or get rid of that, you know. And I've learned the hard way not to ignore those nudges. So
yeah,
but it worked, didn't it? Because we, you know, I mean, there were certain cards were more difficult to give birth to than others.
Right.
But I don't ever remember feeling at loggerheads over anything. We might have felt frustrated on certain days. We had one card that kind of really didn't fully come together till the last minute, and ironically we ended up changing it far less than we thought we would, and it just clicked into place. But other than that, there was never any sense of, you know, I never remember thinking, I do not want to be here. I'm sorry, I've taken this on. At every single point through this, I just felt like this really exciting voyage of discovery, more than anything I've ever done, you know.
A couple of people have asked where to purchase responsibly. Links are below. It's available from Llewellyn, Los Scarabeo in the UK, or Llewellyn in the US. It is available on Amazon. Check your your results may vary. And Ritchie, did you have anything else to add to this?
No, that's lovely. It's just really lovely listening to the story of it.
I love it too. I love it too. Here's a question from Linda de Gonzalez, Kenn, and because then I'm going to ask you to show one of your favorite cards. Question: can a relationship be traced between Inanna, Lilith, and Hekate?
So I guess it depends on how you view things, because obviously, you know, they are separate, sort of pantheon style, you know, and regional sort of deities and things. But there are some people that draw correlated with a lot of different goddesses through the, you know, the centuries, for different reasons. I mean, Hecate's first sort of mentions kind of come around sort of the 8th to 7th century BC. I guess that, you know, if you're looking for sort of like the historical evidence, there's possibly not really that much. But that's not to say that there's not sort of there isn't that sort of similar energy current that, you know, that they flow parallel to each other. So yeah, I would say, I mean, for me personally, I'd say no, but I do know people that sort of work with Hecate alongside goddesses like Lilith and Inanna. You know, and again, I mean, I'm a hard polytheist, so I see all my deities as very distinct and separate. There are people that are sort of soft polytheists, or, you know, flexible polytheists, depending on which goddess and which pantheons they're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for answering that, and thank you for that that question. And the kitty is getting some attention as they walked behind you, Ken.
Yes, well, at least they're behaving themselves, because normally they are climbing all over the altar and knocking things down.
Well, and I love it. This then I just purchased responsibly.
Oh, bless.
Ken, do you have a card that you'd like to share with us? And I realize this is like asking a parent which is their favorite child.
No. I'm going to go with this one because this is actually one of my favorites, because it's one that probably a lot of people will be surprised or not surprised to see in the deck. And it's card number 25. Anasa Pharmakedon, the Queen of Witches. And the keyword is sovereignty. So yeah, so obviously most people hear of Hecate in the context of witchcraft and, you know, a goddess of witchcraft, or, you know, the Queen of Witches. And yet, although it is still referenced that sort of witchcraft connection in antiquity, there's not actually an epithet that sort of sums that one up. But I really, really wanted to put it into the deck, and I was like, right, so how am I going to do this? Am I going to make up, you know, the Greek version of the title? But and so I did. My really subpar understanding of ancient and modern Greek, I kind of sort of hybridized what I thought worked as a title, and so initially I came up with Anasa Magissa, and I just happened to get talking to a friend of mine on Facebook who lives in Greece. He's a native Greek speaker and a devotee of Hecate. And I just said, you know, does this Greek work? You know, does it make sense? And it was through conversation with him. He sort of said, well, yes and no, because basically what you've done is you've got Anasa, which is ancient sort of Greek, and Magissa is the modern Greek word for witch. He said, so you could have it either one or the other. So we could look at doing it as, you know, all ancient or all modern. And obviously the origins for where, you know, of Greek witches and things like that, the word, you know, pharmakia is the root word that was used, the sort of peddlers of poisons and drugs in a sort of magical witchcraft sense. And so he said, well, you could keep the Anasa, and you know, what if we said it Anasa Pharmakedon? So the Pharmakedon are the witches, Anasa means queen. And I was like, as soon as he said it, I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, that fits. It was just like a little click into place. And actually, to look at it now and to think, you would think it's been there, you know, in the PGM alongside all of the other epithets for centuries. And actually, I made it up, but not made it up. I just translated something that existed to sort of make it real.
Yes. Well, and isn't you have, I'm trying to articulate this, you have created something to help us understand some from our own frame of reference that didn't exist before, because some of these terms we wouldn't have needed to say. So, because if you know, to some people, if I were to mention Hecate or Hecate, everybody would, oh yeah, okay, I know exactly what you mean. But now, because there's so many different pantheons, and there's curiosity, and MLR said, I'm tempted to pull out all of my goddess books, but my library is already a mess, trying to pare down. Yeah. So, and but yeah,
I tried to mitigate the mess with mine with a throw, but you know, because that bookshelf is a mess.
yeah. Good luck with that. I don't think it'll work. I want to share. I have two cards that I want to share because I I love these. This is 16 and 17. This is guidance, and you're gonna have, the torchbearer.
Yeah, Dadaphoros.
Yes, what he said. And then the key bearer, number 17, which is
Clydukos.
And there you go, unlocking. These two, these mean a lot for me in my relationship with Hekate, because that's part of what happens. It's not part of what happens. It happens a lot. So I think these are just beautiful cards, and I like how, and I will say, I like how when you lay all the cards out, there is an evolution in between the numbers. So for me, so I appreciate that. So wanted to share those two cards. So, Chris, did you want to share one, or should I go to Ritchie, who has got two out in his hand?
I'll briefly share. I've got two, which I'll briefly talk about. We've already talked about this, the Kore Persephone card. Visually, I love this image so much. And all the things that we created in this deck, I can remember just sitting there. I don't think I've ever enjoyed doing a piece of Photoshop as much as I have this. And I was just so thrilled with this image. But it kind of revived my interest in the myths of Persephone, and also Hecate's role in that myth.
What number is that?
This is number 48, Kore Persephone, which is the card of growth. Mm-hmm. So, but I also, one of the others, this is the one that I also love. This is card number 8, Hotnir Theron, the Lady of Wild Beasts. And this was the one where I kind of really felt as if I came face to face with the goddess, because for me, this is such a raw card. And what I loved about this deck was I do have, I wouldn't say I have a problem, but I do have an issue with a lot of goddess decks in that they kind of feel a little bit varnished, and a little bit sort of, I mean, the reality is a lot of these goddesses were really raw beings. Mm-hmm. And that's what I loved about what Kenn was doing in this deck. It is raw, and, it doesn't shy away from the darkness. And I love this. I've got vivid memories of the morning we created this.
Nice. And
I can remember us stepping back and being really excited about it, as we were about these two. And I think this is why I've picked them, but that for me, that just really sums up the wild nature of Hecate and the sort of dangerous nature of Hecate, which drew me to wanting to sort of do this deck. So yeah, very, very happy memories as an artist of us working on these two together. So
thank you. Wow. Ritchie, you had two cards out.
I was just going to ask a question actually about I love the statuary in the images here. And I was going to wonder, when you were putting them together, did you have I am going to focus on a particular star, so it had to look kind of Greek? I noticed this card here, for example. It looks very that's number 2 there. First time I looked at it, I thought it was like a Madonna and Child that was coming through on that one there. So I just wondered, when you were putting the images together, did you have a particular theme, or did you just go, that works for what we're wanting for the card?
I mean, we kind of, as far as images of Hecate, there are a few that that are identified as her. There are so many more that are probably either misidentified, or because it's easier just to say, oh yeah, this one was Artemis and this one was something else. When you actually start to look at them, you think actually it probably isn't, but because Artemis is the one that's got a sort of bigger name, it's easier for people to recognize with it. So when we pick certain statues to sort of convey the energies of a particular aspect of Hecate, it wasn't that we had a theme, but we kind of just went on a bit of a hunt for the right sort of style of an image. We did try to keep it more in keeping with, you know, the classical sort of style. But we did take a little bit of artistic license with, you know, with what we used and how we sort of utilized it or slightly tweaked it. And I think the good thing that we had as well with, obviously with Chris's signature style, is that we could, if we really struggled, we could use that that really useful silhouette style, so that therefore you know, people can then project into that more about what, you know, what they see.
As an artist, I was kind of really aware that, I mean, we were doing something very different from the Healing Light Tarot and the Healing Light Lenormand, even though obviously that was what had drawn Kenn to me as an artist. But I think what struck me early on was we were having to use source material from a lot of disparate sources. You know, actually, what was great working with Kenn was that obviously he had this really confident sense of what was appropriate to express the nature of the goddess. So, like, you know, like we say, even if it wasn't, you know, an effigy or an image that was specifically attributed, you know, he knew that that image would kind of capture the spirit of what we were trying to say. But actually, just to give you an example, I ended up basing the style of this around the fact that I knew that we were going to be taking all sorts of different source images, because, I mean, we've got, I mean, even on the card 5, Gorgo the Grim, so we've, you know, we've basically got the Gorgon. But I knew that to create this image, we were having to unite a Renaissance painting, Leonardo da Vinci drawings, and statuary. So you're then sort of having to take 3 very, very different pieces of source material, but somehow make them look unified. Hence the kind of the way I've used color, the way I've used texture. Because, I mean, if we look at the next card, card number 6, this was all photographic source material that's been manipulated. Card number 2, statuary. Interestingly, card number 4, a wooden ship's figurehead.
Oh, really?
He used, But you see, again, the figure really perfectly expressed what Kenn wanted to say. You know, gave us the basics, and then obviously, but the challenge for me is taking all of what are in effect mixed media, and combining them down into a unified style. Which is great fun and a wonderful challenge. You know,
it's beautiful, and just as you said, mixing those different kinds of images together.
Beautiful.
Really has a cohesion. It's beautiful.
Some of it's out of necessity, but I think it kind of became a virtue visually.
That making those desperate parts work together is part of how I experience the goddess. So it works very well for me, because I'm listening to you and I'm hearing all the dings in the back of my head. Yep. I made that happen, sort of thing.
Right, so we now officially have it here. I've made Gerald go ding.
That's one ding. Soulstar said, I can see that I badly need this deck for healing work. I am ordering now from Amazon. I can see where that's extremely powerful.
I mean, Hecate does have a lot of healing virtues and healing qualities. You know, I you know, speaking from personal experience, she's been very closely associated with a lot of my personal shadow work and dealing with sort of the things you don't really want to deal with. But you know, and we do explore that with cards like Gorgo, because that's about fears. Barbara Forber, which, you know, the cleansing aspect of her. But then even things like Clytius for the defeat, it's not some, you know, there's so many cards that can be used for overcoming the challenges and the obstacles, with, you know, and having Hecate, you know, either at your side or at your back, helping you through these things.
And MLR said, really interesting that someone is having a baby as this discussion is taking place.
If it's a girl, you'll have to call her Hecate.
Yes. And if it's a boy, I might suggest Gerald is a nice name. Ritchie is a good name. Chris is a very nice name, as is Kenn. However, Ritchie and I already have budgies named after us by Lindsay Gonzalez. So Kenn or Chris. And so, oh, and yes, it's during the middle of the eclipse.
In the middle of eclipse season, yeah.
Ritchie, did you have a card that you wanted to share?
Well, I was. Ken just touched on it. Actually, it's number 7. I'm not going to try and pronounce it there because this. When I was looking through the deck, I was like, "Oh, yes, that's nice." And then I came across this card, and I was like, "I have no concept of what this is about or anything." And I was trying to work out what the image was. I was trying to work with it. And then I read in the book, and then I had to go and do more research about it. But I just found this quite a disturbing image when I first came across it. And then when I did the research, talked about the cleansing side of it all, it made much more sense on that. But I'd like to know a bit more, perhaps, if you can, about the process of creating this card and what it means to you.
So I know that obviously Chris will probably tell you this when he gets to it. When I first put this to him, and I was like, yeah, I need, something that's all skulls and like we actually would the actual image is a before
it's a zombie.
Yeah, it's a woman. A woman done up as a zombie eating, flesh.
First card of the morning, and he said to me, right, he said, I've found exactly the source photo that we need. And then he puts this photo of this like sort of cosplay flesh-eating zombie. And I just looked at him and said, look, love, you've gone too far on this. And I mean, to his credit, Ken just said to me, look, just trust me. Yeah. He explained through the concept. And all of a sudden, I struggled with this, and then the penny dropped that I had a parallel within the religious traditions that I'd studied within. Because obviously, I mean, as somebody with a theology degree, my degree was in Christian theology. But all of a sudden, I realized there's a commonality here, because I mean, you've got the whole sort of purification and atonement aspect of the Christ figure in Christianity, who is basically absorbing the sins of the world. And then all of a sudden, that was the light bulb for me. This is not a new concept. There it was in the ancient pagan world, in that the goddess is basically, absorbing and eating all the filth, all the detritus, all the impurity, eating it, burning it away, digesting it, getting rid of it. And, basically it's as soon as I saw my flesh-eating zombie as a figure of purification, and then I made that parallel, that's what I thought, oh wow, yeah. And at that stage you think, yeah, this is kind of one of the really important cards in the deck. But I've never done zombies before. I mean, what a first.
And the origins behind the name and such, it comes from that sort of slightly later in antiquity time, where Hecate is more associated with the places like the crossroads and the graveyards and the spirits of the dead. And when people made offerings to her, it was usually left at crossroads, and the crossroads back then were usually desolate places on the outskirts of the cities or the towns or the villages. There weren't the places that you wanted to hang around in after dark. And obviously, graveyards not being necessarily what they used to be, or rather what they are today. So if you saw dogs, wild dogs pulling bits of old body out of a shallow grave, and obviously the all of those things that we find, revolting, and it causes a really intrinsic reaction to us of recoil and such. But actually, when you start to think about it in terms of the goddess, dogs were her sacred animal. So when you look at it that way, even to a certain degree, ancient Greeks and such, they understood certain things about disease and pollution and miasma and things like that. So they could then look at that and see, okay, so the goddess's sacred animal is eating the rotting flesh to get it away from us. so that we're not going to get poorly or anything like that. And so as much as we don't want to look at it, it's not so much that she's asking us to look at it, but she's asking us not to sort of forget that she can, she has that ability to take on all of that detritus. And I mean, we talk about it as well in our videos on Chris's channel.
Yes.
But one of the things that I've found time and time again is that Hecate is inextricably linked with the human condition. When you look at certain like older myths and such, the gods are often quite aloof with their interactions with mortals. Certainly whenever anything that creates miasma happens, such as birth or murder or death, the main gods tend to stay well away. Hecate doesn't have that to worry about.
Right in.
She goes between all of the realms. So she's in it, she's so close to us in life and death and birth and all of that, that we shouldn't be fearful of these things that actually might be a bit revolting or grotesque, because there is still a divinity as part of it.
Yes. And I also have to say, because I find this goddess a very healing goddess, and part of healing is you must remove that which is causing the injury. You must, remove the poison, and then cleanse it, and then monitor it while you heal. So that idea of cleansing is very, very true. And sometimes if if you have a snake bite, you have to suck out the venom in order to heal. So this is a very visceral reaction to this. So
I think if creating any card in the deck changed my understanding, this was probably the one that changed it most. Because having started this project with virtually no knowledge of this goddess, and also with sort of me coming from so far outside the sort of goddess spirituality, it was kind of like a bridge card for me that made me realize that actually there is so much commonality with the traditions that I knew, but at the same time there's so much that's distinctive and different. And I kind of grew to love this card rather than fear it, because I must admit my initial response, veiled over with my sort of joking and sarcasm, was actually one of revulsion and of quite a bit of fear, but not by the time we'd finished.
I will have to say, one of the things that you can't see very well in the camera, and Ritchie, you can probably verify this, and all the other two, the guys can verify this. The depth and the overlap really makes this card feel more solid rather than ephemeral.
Ken had this lovely idea of, if you look, there's lots of skulls ghosted in here. But I remember Ken saying to me, let's see if we can get the skulls to look like smoke, that's what I really love about this, because we kind of managed to achieve what Ken wanted, which was to kind of make it feel as if she was on fire within. But I love this kind of almost like she's surrounded by, all of this, what looks like smoke, but it's actually the ghosts of skulls. But then I love the symbolism of the skeleton and the skull, because it really is, that in itself, skeleton is the end of a purification process. It's all that remains once decomposition and dissolution has happened. So but you're right, it is a kind of very solid feeling card that doesn't necessarily come over on screen.
So we're at an hour and 15 minutes already.
God.
I mean, and so I need to end soon, because I need to be respectful of everybody's time. Might we discuss a part 2 of this at a later time? I mean, if that's interest to you. But and of course, all of my guests are going to go, yes, let's do that. And then backstage we'll go, Gerald, what the hell are you thinking? So,
as long as we haven't sent everyone to sleep, I'm more than happy to do part 2.
Well, there are still 31 people watching.
Wow.
So 31 people are very interested in this deck, which gives me a sense there is a need for more about Hekate out there, because she is such a primordial goddess. There's always been her.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say that she's always been there. So in the end, I mean, to finish this up, I guess I'm gonna put this to Kenn. I'm gonna put Kenn on the spot. Who would benefit from getting this deck, and how would you hope it benefits them?
Well, I mean, it sounds trite to say everybody should get the deck. But the idea behind the deck for me was that it should be able to be used by anybody. You don't have to be a devotee or a pagan follower of the goddess. It can be utilized in a devotional aspect and a divinatory aspect. But if you don't sort of view Hecate like that, then you can then look at the cards as archetypes and as symbolic representations of things in life. So you can use it in a very layman way of utilizing it as a divinatory tool. As we've already touched on as well, you've got the healing aspect to it. And I think what I know Chris has mentioned to me before as well is that obviously when we do readings for people with this deck, it doesn't pull its punches, but it does tell you kind of like what you need to sort of know at that moment to deal with a situation. And so whether you're looking at it in a spiritual sense, or if you're looking at it more sort of psychological background, or even in literal terms, it seems to be as useful across the board, and that's kind of what I always wanted. Even though I created it from a devotional side of things, I did want it to work for people beyond that, because as we've said, Hecate runs through so much of existence and history and the human condition and all that kind of stuff. So I suppose there's so much that's very relatable. When we pull cards out and they have things like fear or fury or death or obstacles, they're all things that we can identify with and relate to in mundane life. And I think that's where the practicality of the deck comes in, that anybody should be able to use it.
Yeah,
absolutely. Ritchie, you're holding some cards.
No, I'm just playing with them at the moment.
So, okay. Chris, would you like to say anything about how you hope, what the benefit? I mean, because you weren't familiar with the goddess Hecate before you started this.
Exactly. And I just want to back up what Kenn said from the perspective that I'm living proof that it works, because I was thrilled to be on board with this once I knew what Kenn wanted. But I'll be perfectly honest, when I started that journey, I knew it was a journey that I was going to really enjoy, but I didn't expect to come away with a finished product that I would be using, because initially I'm thinking, well, this is completely outside of my traditional spirituality and my realm of experience. Yet what I'll say is that in the process of putting this together, this taught me, it gave me a relationship with Hecate. I'm now working with this deck on a regular basis, which I kind of, it's funny, as an artist, you kind of have an ambivalent relationship with your own work, because you don't always want to be faced with it. I'm very proud of my own work, but I prefer to be working with other people's decks, because that gives me an input in the way that I hope mine does to other people. But what shocked me is that this has actually been my guide into the realm of the goddess. So in terms of Kenn saying it's for everyone, if that can work for me and actually open up this incredible realm of experience and spirituality, then it can equally do that for anyone else. So I would say that, yeah, this is for the devotee. This is for the adept devotee. It's for the person beginning their journey with Hecate, but it's also this is such an accessible way to get to know her. Now that sounds biased on my part in that I illustrated it, but you know, I was illustrating under somebody else's guidance, so the concepts in here are not mine, but actually it's proved to me a very accessible introduction to the goddess. So from my perspective, if it does that, and I've kind of been left with an enthusiasm for this goddess that I never thought I would have. So it kind of says it all, doesn't it? Yeah.
Kenn, take a breath, breathe in. We're heaping praise on you. We're heaping praise on you. People would love a part 2, and they would love a part 2, and I would love a part 2 to continue to talk about this deck. I'd also love to have the laugh and learn about the goddess, because there's Marta said, absolutely. Hecate started out as an all-powerful mother figure and has been reduced over time to a night walker and witch goddess. And so it's like I feel her as a protective mother more than a dark one. And I think this is exactly who she is. She is all of those things. She is what you most need when you are working with her, even though you don't know that's what you need from her.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, the cards that we've kind of touched on and shown up in the thing, not necessarily that we have focused on some of the darker ones, but just for the sake of balance, there are some of those lighter aspects.
Oh, there are, yes.
In the deck, and I'm just rifling through mine now, trying to find examples.
Is she number 23?
24.
24.
But also, when people, I know Ritchie pulled number 2, which is the Victor card, yes, and then obviously we have Satera as the savior. And then people saying about the protective aspect. So obviously card 13 on my thing.
Oh, yes.
The averter of evil, this sort of deflective, protective element of the goddess.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, all of that is still in there, and obviously, I'm not Ritchie. I'm not going to try and pronounce that one because it is really
no.
But the most manifest goddess. Let's leave it at that.
Yes. Plucky said, "Early birthday present to me. I celebrate my birthday 6 or 7 times a month." I am a person.
I'm liking this.
Yes, I am a person who believes you should celebrate your birthday. 1 day for every year that you have been alive.
Oh, blimey.
So there you go.
It was my birthday on Monday, so if we're going by that record, I can celebrate it for the next 41 days.
Darlings, I'm 57 in May, so if that means you're going to send me 57 Amazon vouchers, be my guest.
Well, happy birthday, Kenn. I wish I had known that. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
And words in wonder to Kenn. When is your book on Hecate out? I missed that earlier. No pressure.
So I've not. So there's going to be an expanded companion book to the deck that I'm working on. I haven't finished it yet, so I don't have a specific release date as at this time. And then obviously I do plan to release a separate book about sort of Hecate in general and working with her, but again I've got to finish it and I have no idea as far as dates, but watch this space. Once I have an idea, everybody will know.
Trust me, I'm a fan, so you'll be hearing about it from me. Because so the expanded oracle, then the one for the other for the getting to know her. Is there another deck perhaps in the working? Oh, I would even use my tiny hands for that one. Watch this space.
We've been talking, haven't we?
So,
and
we'll put it this way: I was talking before we'd even finished this deck. So
I mean, I'm really going to say no to a prospect like that, aren't I? So,
oh, wait, yeah. Yes, I believe you, Chris. You're going to say no to a sure thing.
Absolutely. No,
And-
we're sort of we've been kind of discussing, haven't we? So it's kind of in very early stages, but ideally, we want to work on a follow-up deck to this. So, and then hopefully we'll be able to tell you more soon.
So everybody, please purchase responsibly. Know your limits. We are here to share, not to sell. And everybody, please like and subscribe to all of our channels. Thank you so very much for being here. There may be a part 2, and there'll probably be a laugh and learn if I can get Kenn available and all that stuff. So yeah, no reason not to continue a successful partnership.
Absolutely.
And I'm like going, how quickly can I send stuff for Kenn's birthday to him? I mean, you know, I'm like going, how can I do this anyhow? Because, you know, I'm supposed to heap flowers on you and chocolate. You probably don't like chocolate though.
Oh, I like chocolate.
Chocolate is a very good votive offering, believe me. You know.
Yes.
we did find when we were working on the deck, chocolate and wine were the kind of 2 prime votive offerings. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you everyone for being here. Please do us the favor and like and subscribe to all of our channels. All of the links are below, and do go over to Chris's channel and look at the playlist about this deck, because it's like this. And you get to see the cards that they're talking about. So I will say thank you very much, and everyone take care.
So